morning, kids. Today we're going to have a Bible story in 2 Kings chapter 5. All right, now I'm going to tell you a Bible story about a man who had leprosy. Now remember, Jesus healed lepers in the New Testament because leprosy was a very bad disease that would eat your skin. All right, so we're going to talk about a man named Naaman. Now, Naaman had leprosy, and it was really bad, but he was very smart, and he was very brave, and God had given him victory in the battle because God's people were not listening to him. So when we stop listening to God, the enemy sneaks in, and so that's what was happening, and so they were actually the enemy of God's people, but Naaman was a good man, and he was kind, but he had leprosy. Now, during this time, they had got a little girl from Israel, and she was Mrs. Naaman's helper. So Naaman's wife had her be her little helper. And so when she was with her, she said, if Captain Naaman went to the prophet in Israel, he would be well. And she went, oh my goodness. So she told him, and he told the king. And the king of Assyria said, well, Naaman, I sure like you. I will write a letter to the king of Israel and tell him to make you well. So he was excited. He got all of his stuff ready. He got silver and gold and outfits. And they went, and when they got there, they gave the letter to the king of Israel. And so when the king of Israel read that letter, he was afraid. This is what the letter said. King of Israel, now be advised, when this letter comes to you, that I have sent Naaman, my servant, to you, that you may heal him of his leprosy. Oh my goodness. That made the king of Israel very afraid. He said, okay, Mr. Naaman, please let's show him to a nice room while I talk about this. And then he ripped his clothes with his friends and he said, look, the king of Syria is trying to fight with me. He knows I'm not God. He knows I can't heal him. Oh no, he just wants to fight. And he was so scared. Well, God told the prophet of God, Elisha, and Elisha sent a letter to the king and said, why did you rip your clothes? There is a prophet of God. See, he should have known about that. Sometimes when we get scared about things, remember, we have God with us. Well, he forgot. And so Naaman was waiting in his room going, where are they? Where are they? Why aren't they coming in to make me well? I don't want these grapes. I want to be healed of my leprosy. Well, the king was very glad to say, you need to go to the prophet of God. So they were excited to go, and he was very happy that they were going. So on their way to the prophet of God, Naaman got to his house named Elisha. And he sat out there and he waited and he said, he needs to come out here and make me well. And he had all of his men with him, and his horses and his chariots and all his stuff. Well, God was talking to Elisha, and Elisha was listening to what God says. And so as he heard God tell him, God told him to send a servant out there. So Elisha sent a servant out with the message. And he told Naaman, the servant said, Elisha says, go dip in the river Jordan 7 times and you will be well. Well, he was not happy about that. Naaman goes, what? What? I don't want to go dip in no stinky green river. There's rivers in my area that's so beautiful. If I'm going to dip in some water, I'm going to pick the water. I'm not going to do that. Now, he was very angry, but Elisha was trusting God because he could have went right back to King of Assyria and say, they were mean to me, they were rude to me, and there could have been a war. But Elisha was trusting what God said. So he was so angry, and he was going, I'm going home, and he was mad like that. But his friends cared about him, and his friends said, Captain Naaman, if he told you to climb the highest mountain and put a flag on the top, you would do that. All he said to do was dip in the river Jordan 7 times, that's all, and you'll be well. And he goes, well, okay, that's true, fine. So he went out there and he began to dip in the river Jordan 1 time. Oh, it's still there. It was white and it was eating on his skin. And maybe even got worse in that water. Ugh, sometimes God tells us to do things that doesn't make sense. So he dipped in 2 times and it was still there. Maybe there was a beetle bug in it. And then 3 times, and then 4 times, and 5 times, all the way until 7 times, just like God said. And on the 7th time, it was all gone. His skin was so clean, it was like a little kid's skin. Maybe if he got scars in the battle, they were gone too. His skin was perfectly well. Well, he was so happy. He goes, I got to give him something for this present. This is a great thing. So he went to his house and he said, Elisha, here, take gold, take silver, take all these extra clothes. Thank you, thank you. And Elisha said, no. See, God was talking to Elisha, and God told Elisha, it's not time to take anything. Now, usually they did take things from people. That's how they got their money. But God knows everything. So God told Elisha, no, it's not time. And so Elisha went out and said, no, sir, I'm not taking anything from you. It's a gift from God. God's given it to you. Well, Naaman said, well, then he's going to be my God. And that's what God wanted anyway. Well, Gehazi was Elisha's friend. And Gehazi didn't understand why he didn't take some of that silver and some of that gold and some of those new clothes. And he was, why isn't he taking that? He said, you know what? God lives. I'm going to go run after him and I'm going to get something from him. Now, he didn't know what Elisha and God were talking about. When we stay in God's word, kids, we are safe. The devil is a liar, and he wants to trick us and tell us things that aren't true. But Gehazi didn't understand. That was his name, Gehazi. Gehazi did not understand, and so he decided to go get something for himself. So he went running after them, and Naaman goes, is everything okay? And he said, yes, my servant, my master Elisha changed his mind. Some servants are coming, and we need some extra clothes. We need some silver. Is that okay? And he said, sure, it's okay. Here, take 2 silvers. Here, take bags. Take this, take gold. Or not gold, just take the clothes. And so he took all that stuff, and when he took it from their hands, and Gehazi hid it inside his house. Now, back in the day, friends, they didn't really know a lot about germs. So he was taking some things from Naaman who had leprosy. And as Naaman was healed, God was healing all that stuff. But maybe the stuff that he took still had germs on it. Well, when he went to Elisha said, where have you been? And he said, I didn't go anywhere. And he said, yes, you did. It's not time. It wasn't time. Now leprosy is going to be on you and your family. Isn't that sad? He brought that stuff into his house where his family was. And Gehazi got leprosy. So when he ran after him saying, I'm going to go get something from him, he did. He got leprosy. And the stuff that he had wasn't worth it because now he would die. And friends, I want you to remember that in the beginning, when God created our world, there were no germs. There were no diseases. There was like a peach seed. It made perfect fruit. Everything was beautiful and wonderful. But when Adam and Eve sinned, it messed up our seed. It messed up our seed. And so now we have sin in us and we can't trust it. But we can always trust God. Our seed in us, sometimes we're kind and sometimes we're sharing, and that's wonderful. But there's times we're selfish and we're not listening. That's sin. And so we can't always trust how we feel, but we can always trust God because sin is like leprosy. It comes inside you and eats at you and makes you very, very sad. And when you make the wrong choices like Gehazi did. But Jesus is our cure. Okay, so just trust the Lord with all your heart and know that his word is always truth. Okay? So the one question I want to ask you today is, when you are afraid, who is always with you to help you? Do you remember that? God loves you very much. Bye-bye.